Hey, what's going on, guys? We're going to go ahead and continue on with the Traitor Legions. Today we're going to be starting with the Death Guard. So, Death Guard have a really crazy backstory, and that's going to be a whole thing when we start breaking the legions down. It's going to be a thing we really, really have to get into. But they were originally known as the Dusk Raiders, the ones that came from Terra during the Great Crusade to go find all the primarchs. They were originally called the Dusk Raiders. And they later became the Death Guard after they were reunited with Mortarion and all that kind of stuff happened. They hail from a planet, or Mortarion rather, hails from a planet called Barbarous. It's it's kind of like a feral world, is what it really is. And you find out that there's like these overlords in the sky that are like raining toxins, and that's why Mortarion is so like, I don't want to say messed up, but he's definitely not okay. During this whole thing, where they got the whole like scythes for the whole army, like I don't know if you guys have ever seen models of Death Guard. I'm sure that Kyle has.
Yeah, they're my first army.
But they all just carry scythes. A lot of the sergeants carry, scythes. And the way that came from was Mortarion was actually like hanging out with farmers when the revolt happened, and he just had grabbed a scythe and started going to town. And it stuck.
I thought it was because
So
they were the reaper.
was that?
I thought it was because they were reaping.
No. Well, no, not really. Now, one of the things to know about Death Guard, and this reflects in how they play as well. Dude, they're tough. They're so alarmingly tough, and a lot of that comes from how Mortarion does things and how he himself behaves. You have to remember that like he literally went on a crusade up in the sky to fight his adopted father, and then the Emperor showed up and said, "I'm not going to help you with that." Like Mortarion had two dads before it was cool. And like the Emperor didn't help him, and then when Mortarion was just getting bodied, the Emperor was like, "Okay, clearly you don't know how to fight yet. I'll help you with that. Let me handle this problem for you." That's one of the root causes for Mortarion being so so stubborn and resilient. One of the things they even talk about is like after really good campaigns, they'll go and share a cup of toxins with their commanders. Like if you could imagine after a fight, like you just got through just actually fighting for your life, like on a planet against some non-compliant planet, and your Gene father shows up and he's like, "What's going on, man? I got a cup of bubonic plague. It's got a touch of herpes. Let's pound this down and celebrate."
But celebrate with
like,
a bump.
yeah, just like a little of herpes, right? But not normal herpes. I'm talking the shit that kills elephants. And that's how they celebrated. Death Guard are notoriously tough. Now, going along the long line of lieutenants that hate primarchs, you have the first character in the Death Guard that is not Mortarion, and that is Callus Typhon. Now, 40k players are like, "Man, that sounds familiar." It is. He later becomes Typhus. The same Typhus you're playing with now was originally named Callus Typhon. And he was from Barbarous. And he is one of the ones who's really trying to steer the Legion toward Nurgle during the heresy. Like at first it just turns into like, yeah, we don't really like Dad. He's a piece of shit. He wouldn't even help me with my Sky Daddy. And then Typhus is over here like, bro, if we take a bump of this shit in this little cauldron over here, whoo, we gonna be mean. And it was kind of hilarious because like Mortarion hates Typhus. Like toward the end of all this, he hates Typhus for like pushing him into that area. um, Typhus is tough too, man. Typhus is no small feat of just raw aggression. Like he's actually really tough. He's really powerful. He's very good in the game. He does have psychic powers because he is one of the psychers that Mortarion is like, I hate psychic powers. One of the things you'll notice is the Traitor Legions as a whole are complete hypocrites from where they are, where they were in the Heresy to where they are now. You know, you're going to find out that Death Guard didn't like psychers, but here we are in 40k, and they're all psychers, even Mortarion.
It's not
The
psychic powers, Gabe. It's just COVID, okay? There's a difference.
bro, that's a mean ass COVID. But Typhus really was the one to lean the whole Legion toward Death Guard. He's the reason that they went after Grandfather Nurgle and like took the gifts. Really, Mortarion got trapped into it. He didn't want to be there, but he slowly leaned into it more and more until you get into the 41st millennia, 40k, where he's all about, you know, mainlining aids and being okay with it. To kind of focus into that, you have to keep in mind that throughout the heresy, Typhus and Mortarion play completely different because they're opposites. They really don't like each other. And there's not really a way to explain that until you play them and you read about them. But what I will say is they're all resilient. Typhus, resilient as hell. They do a lot of shrouding. Like, you know, they get a lot of shroud saves, a lot of like their own version of a feel no pain. They get a lot of relentless, where they ignore moving and shooting with heavy weapons. They do a lot of firing protocols where they can shoot a lot of weapons all at once. They
They're
have rules.
inexorable.
What's that?
They're inexorable. They're always moving. They always keep walking, moving forward.
Pretty much, yeah. They're just a moving line, and a lot of them also have rules like shrouded in death, where what that translates to in Mark II right now, or 2.0, is when you charge them, you always count as disordered because you're having to charge through basically like a cloud of plague. It's pretty cool. Typhus does have a model, both in 30k and 40k, so you can get that model. So one of the next big names in Death Guard, he doesn't have a model, so he's somebody you're gonna have to kit bash. But his name is Chrysos Morturg, and I probably butchered that name. But he is one of the Death Guard that goes on to become a Black Shield. The Black Shields are very similar to what you see in 40k, which are like the Death Watch. They're similar to this, right? They're not actually Death Watch, where Death Watch are the guys that are like a collaboration of legions and things like that. The Black Shields are more like a how can I explain this? They're a conglomeration of outcasts. These are guys who were either loyalists who their main legion went traitor, or these are guys that were part of the Shattered Legions after Istvan, or they were part of a group of guys who basically took like an oath where like, you know, like I'm going to go and get revenge for my legion. They're very hodgepodge, throw together kind of guerrilla forces, for lack of a better term. This is also where you get like this is where a lot of the guys like, what is his name? There's one particular world eater who stayed loyal and he went and joined the Shattered Legions, and he later became a Black Shield. And this is basically your catch-all for all the guys who don't really belong with their parent legions anymore, but they still want to go out and do hood rat shit with their friends. the black shields let him do that. And Morturg is one of the black shields. He is kind of a cool model because he is a psyker and he's tough as shit. And when I say he's tough, he's a destroyer, right? He's a destroyer captain is really what he is. So he has rad grenades. He's about that destroyer life. He has all the Death Guard rules, but then he, on top of that, has a couple of other rules currently in 2.0 that make him even more resilient. Like his armor gives him a 2-up, 4-up, but then it inherently gives him a 6-up shroud.
I was
then-
muted, but you're thinking about Endred Har.
Injured Heart.
I was
That's the boy I'm
screaming.
thinking
I was
about. Good
screaming
man.
it. I was like, Gabe, I wanted to build him so bad, but you know, being muted, you can't hear me talk. So
Yeah, Injured Heart and his Infinity Gauntlet. So this guy also has a rule called Shielded by Hate, where, like, basically just once per game, if he's reduced to 0 wounds, he can just take a psychic test and get redeployed with 1 wound. He's tough. This is going to be a very common theme with Death Guard, where they're just resilient. And like I said, I'm hoping 3.0 he sticks around and we get some expansion on this. He's one of the one-offs that's like a loyalist who stayed loyal, all that kind of stuff. So he's actually pretty cool. The next named character they have that's what's up?
If you were to, I mean, if you wanted to add him to your list, how would you kit bash him to make him look like it? Like, what do you have to add?
So what's really cool is he's just a destroyer. Like, that's really all he is. But here's where some guys are going to get giddy. He carries twin disintegrator pistols. So in all actuality, he's like a Moritot. But he's also a psyker, and he also is tough as hell, and he also has damage mitigation rolls. And he also, when he dies, can just be like, I didn't really die.
He's the only one that could do
Right.
hood rat shit that blows up and be like, nah, dude, we're good.
Now, he also comes with a combi flamer, a bolter combi flamer hybrid, but it's really cool because he has the Death Guard specific Alchem flamer. And then his close combat weapon that he has is called Death's Tally. And it's basically like a overcharged close combat weapon. It actually has a rule that makes it to where when he rolls a 1, he takes a wound like Gets Hot. He's the embodiment of what a destroyer really is, man. Like he's a destroyer's destroyer. It's pretty hilarious. So that's how you would kit him up. You'd give him a couple pistols, give him a combi flamer, and just roll him up. And he's in regular power armor. He's not in Terminator armor, which is actually a nice breath of fresh air. He's a named character that isn't running around in some variation of Terminator armor, because that's a very, very common trope in Heresy. I'm sure that you guys have seen that a lot, where you're like, oh, I'm going to put this guy in the squad. He's in sweeping advance, but he's in Terminator armor. Yay. So this guy not having it is actually a pretty cool thing. The next character that they have that has rules, but again does not have a model, you have to kit bash this guy, is Drak Rask. Rask is, he's a siege breaker to the nth degree. So he has, instead of where a normal siege breaker would have the Art of Destruction rule right now in 2.0, and we're going to see how that gets affected in 3.0, but the way that works now is they can just give a unit Sunder, which is a rule going away in the new edition. This dude just says, like, hey, any penetrating hits I get, you get +1 to the vehicle damage chart roll. And that's
interesting to see how that changes.
Yeah. Now, since we don't have the damage vehicle table in 3.0 from the leaks that we've seen, he's clearly going to have some other things, but he's basically just a very, very, very good siege breaker. He carries, a Volkite Serpenta. He's got a couple of Phosphex bombs, and he has a close combat weapon called Defiant. It's pretty good. It's basically it's kind of like a super Thunderhammer. Kinda. It's got like the weapon profile of a Thunderhammer, but it also has thunder. It's gross. His big claim to fame is he fought at the siege of Vaspul, and that's where he lost an eye and got all scarred up and became really ugly. And he was also one of the first guys in the Legion that when they were like, hey, we're thinking about trading on the Emperor, and then like from the back of the room, he's like, yeah, fuck that guy. Yeah. Like,
that guy likes
he was,
to party.
yeah, he was one of the first guys who was just like, fuck the Emperor and fuck carrots. Like, he hated the Imperium. He was one of the first ones that was like, yeah, I'm all about, let's go kill this dude. Let's go get rid of this. He did die. And funny enough, he got killed during Istvan.
I feel like there's a lot of people that we could be like got killed during Esteban, maybe, and then they end up coming back or some shit. Like we don't really know.
No. It's confirmed. Like, so what's even funnier is this guy didn't even make it to the drop site massacre. That's one of the reasons that like him as a character, I always crack up when I read about this guy because Rask is out there. He's like, yeah, fuck the Imperium, Dad. Let's go get him. They're like, all right. He goes, let's go to Istvan 3 and let's weed out the loyalists. And then he just didn't make it back. He didn't even make it to the drop site massacre in Istvan 5. Like, he died on Istvan 3. Like, he died going to HR, dude. And so when people read about him, they're like, wow, this guy was all about it with no show up for it. This dude was all bark, no bite. And it's funny, but it's not funny. The part that makes it not funny for me is that this guy got rules and Dantiok didn't. I don't get it, man.
Back on Dantiok cock. Come on, man.
Dude, he's so good. So yeah.
Not good enough.
Now, so funny thing is that's all the characters out of the Death Guard. After this, you get their special units. And the first of the special units, I think everyone is intimately familiar with, and that's Death Shroud Terminators. For those of you who have never played Warhammer or have never played with Death Guard necessarily, Death Shroud Terminators are so good that they normally get purchased in 3s, not 5s. They are a straight up bodyguard unit. They are hard to kill, very hard to kill. They have power scythes that do a lot of work. They're bodyguard units. Like I said, you can take them as retinues. And what's even cooler about them is they're Tartarus Terminator armor. So they can still like sweeping advance and move a little faster. They're still movement 7 and all that in 2.0. Really aggressive unit. If you want to build up a unit that's going to be with your Praetor or your Centurion or your Warlord, whatever it is, Death Shroud will keep him safe. They're actually very good at their job. The next special unit that they have are called Grave Warden Terminators.
These guys are my favorite.
Grave Wardens are Terminators if they had a love baby with war crimes. They have a grenade launcher and a cloud of toxins, and they can have toxin bombs, and they can have phosphex bombs in some cases. They have death cloud projectors that fire out. So when you charge them, I think the math is something like if you charge them and they overwatch right now in 2.0, I think one unit of 10 gets 40 shots with their assault launchers and then 10 D3 auto hits with their death clouds.
And is disorganized because they have Death Cloud.
Yep, Andrew disorganized because they have shrouded in death and all that kind of stuff. What's super hilarious
Look
is
at you remembering the
they're
rules, Kyle.
Terminators. I know
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
so
so
proud of him. He's
proud.
read before. I could
Like I
shed
said,
one
these
single
guys are my
tear, but
baby.
I could shed a tear. But no, you get back in there, Tim. So what's crazy is their Terminators are a heavy support choice, and their range on their weapons is like 18 inches.
Yeah, it's so bad.
Right? It's like when I went to go like help build some of the lists and stuff, when guys were like, "Yeah, what's Death Guard?" I'm like, "Oh, do they have these things called Grave Wardens? They're so gross." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're. Well, why aren't they elites?" So I was looking, I was like, "Where are these guys?" I was like, "Why the fuck are they heavy supports?" And then I saw one shoot one time, and I'm like, "I get it. I understand now. That's why they are the way they are." Um, yeah, they're fun. They're definitely, and they're another one of those units you park a character with them, and they'll just stay there. They're tough. They're in cataphracty Terminator armor, so I mean you're talking 2-up, 4-up invols. They're gross. They're great. Love them to death. Overall aesthetic for Death Guard, their actual Legion gameplay is kind of how we were talking about. They're just resilient. They like to move forward, and they just like to just keep getting ground and not giving any up. They're very resilient, very tough, very stubborn.
Slowly gaining ground.
Yeah, slowly, but I mean
They're-
they're going to gain
yeah.
it. So paint wise, Death Guard are kind of a bone white with green trim, which is a lot different from their 40k heraldry, because in 40k they're just flat green. They're green everywhere because, plague. But their original scheme is white with green trim.
Yeah, those
Fun army to paint,
Death Guard's
fun
age.
army to play. Well, and you know what the crazy thing is they're one of the armies with the least amount of special options, and they're probably the most played army in 2.0 right now.
Yeah, but not having that many options, but having the best options and being able to move and shoot fully with them is a
Yeah,
really good option.
it definitely, yeah, it definitely helped the aesthetic. It really did.
Also, they're very noob friendly, I found.
So it's okay. Small caveat there. It's not so much that they're noob friendly. It's the fact that their rules, they do have a lot of them. They have a lot of special rules and whatnot, but their rules don't have a lot of read this to understand this to understand this. It's not that they're necessarily noob friendly. They're not rule heavy.
Yeah, when we say
Interesting.
new
And
friendly, I also don't agree with that. Yes, easy, walk forward, shoot. But if you actually get in depth with it and think about it, you're only moving so slow. So you really have to plan out your movements, your angles, and where you need to get to, because most likely your opponent is moving way faster than you. So I don't.
well, and so the other reason why I think Death Guard had a lot of players to start with is the current versions of their Rite of Wars want to bring a lot of tanks, a lot of artillery, a lot of heavy weapons, a lot of resilient units. It's a lot of cool factor. And that's, if you're going to get somebody to the game, get them the coolest stuff. You know, when we start talking about a couple of these other legions, there are some legions that have a lot of cool factor, but a lot of complications.
Yep, it's one I want to build, and I kept myself back from one of them because I was like, man, if I started this as my first army, this is gonna be a headache.
Oh, for sure. For sure. But yeah, that pretty much wraps us on the Death Guard. Any last thoughts or questions?
Did have a question, and this is for everyone out there too to learn. We were talking about Black Shields. I know we're not going to touch that much into them there, but were they all traitors? That were they all loyalists? That when their traitor legion became traitor, I just worded that poorly, but when everyone betrayed the emperor, they're just traitors that stay. They're loyalists that didn't go with their legion, basically, right? So are
Not
all of
not all of them.
okay? That's where I was like, okay.
Not all of them. So the actual term of Black Shields just refers to not normal Space Marines.
Okay.
I think the actual term they use is irregular. What they basically are, they've denounced their legion.
Denounced
Not
legion
necessarily
follows the emperor, right?
yeah, they denounce their legion, and there are even some really, really outlandish ones where people are like, "Where are you from?" He's like, "We don't talk about it." There are dudes who are Black Shields that they don't. No one knows what their actual founding legion was. They don't know what their origins are, because there are guys that were so ashamed of what their legions did, or they were so ashamed of like what they did. To give you an example, one of the people who links up with the Black Shields later are the White Scars, because the White Scars, as we talked about in the Loyalist episode, some of them wanted to go horror side. They had like their own little mini civil war between the White Scars, and the Khan was like, I charge you to go out on a penitent crusade until you die. You can never replenish your ranks. You'll never be supported. Go out and go as a war band until you're finished. They link up with the Black Shields and start fighting with the Black Shields because they weren't allowed to go back to the White Scars. And the Black Shields were like, "We'll take any help we can get." And they're like, "Yeah, man, we'll link up. You got any of that ammo, dog?" Like scratching their neck and shit. So
I know this is not how it goes. I know this is, and I'm about to break a whole bunch of lore because it just made me start laughing. Can you imagine, like, they don't know what legion you're from, but then you take off your helmet and they're like, "Oh shit, yeah, nah, you're a White Scar," or "Oh shit, no, you're a Salamander." Like, they're like,
so
"How do you know?"
what's
Bro, that Fu Manchu you're showing off? Yeah, you a White Scar.
well, it's really funny because in the audiobooks, it's like all of the White Scars have the thick Mongolian accent.
Mm-hmm.
Now, GW, I don't know who the hell thought the Salamanders had to be Jamaican, but they are. In the books, they're
Damn, they couldn't
Jamaican.
have gone. They couldn't even gone Wakandan. They had to go Jamaican.
No, they went full Jamaican, bro. I'm talking like these dudes. You'll have to listen to it one day just to crack up. Like, I love the story of the Salamanders. I hate listening to their audiobooks.
Vulcan
That's not to
lives.
tell you not that's not to tell you not to look at them. Like, you should read all the books because they're great lore. But of all the possible, like, dude, I would have taken Jive over Jamaican.
That-
Like, so. But no, going back to your original thing, the Black Shields. What's funnier is they don't even have like a real origin story. All you really know is they're like a conglomeration of these Space Marines that said, like, I'm no longer a part of my legion. I'm going to go help you. So that's what that is. Now, I'm sure there's some people out there that disagree with me, and there's somebody who read a novel once upon a time in a miniseries written by some person who was appreciated as canon, who said that it originated with so on and so forth somewhere. I'm sure that exists, and someone will correct me. I'm not worried about that.
Comment down below, though.
The Yeah, comment down below. Like, if because here's the other thing too, is like, I am not qualified to tell you a lot about Black Shields because I've never played them. I've never built a Black Shields list. I've never even played against Black
You've
Shields.
ever, when we first saw Endred Hard's abilities, I was like, "What are these, Gabe? What are Black Shields? Let me get into this game with you." And you're like, "I don't know." And then we read his freaking melee profile, and you're like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah, I was like, oh, I see what's up. Y'all got a World Eater Thanos out here. So yeah, but all right, let's keep cracking. Next Legion is the Thousand Sons. Now, personal bias, I think the Thousand Sons have the coolest aesthetic in Horus Heresy.
Hell yeah, they do.
um, uh,
These,
we'll talk
these
about it
bit,
at the end. We'll talk about it
you
at the
shut
end.
up with your hazard stripes. These bitches are beautiful.
I like their other color than the one
Oh,
you like.
the blue.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't want to spoil it, but yes, I like the
Yeah.
blue
So,
more than I like the other one.
silence, please. So, Their home world is Prospero. Magnus, cool thing about Magnus, when it comes to psychers, so for those of you who haven't seen it before, the 40k version of Magnus, his model is colossal. I'm talking, he's the size of some baby knights. He's around 7.5 inches tall, not counting his wings. He's huge. That is like 70% Magnus.
Is 7.5 inches big?
It depends on if the snow's packed. So
it's all about the context. In Warhammer, it's
So-
huge.
Magnus was such a strong psyker that he was communicating with the Emperor before he was reunited with his legion. The story of the Thousand Sons is because when the Emperor found Magnus, his sons were falling to what was called the flesh change, and there were only 1,000 of them left when they found Magnus. And Magnus knew this ahead of time because he was communicating with the Emperor across all of time and space psychically for years before he was found. Magnus is one of those primarchs that has 1,800 nicknames. They call him Magnus the Red, the Crimson King, the Sorcerer King, the Cyclopean Magnus. They call him the Red Cyclops. He's got tons of nicknames. There are 3 things to know. Magnus did do something wrong.
No. Magnus did nothing wrong.
Magnus
But-
actually did nothing the wrong way.
No. So this is what I will say. Our older viewers will get this. Magnus is the Astartes version of Ernest Goes to Camp. He's doing his best, but he just keeps fucking up. Okay, like that's all I can tell you is he's constantly trying to do the right thing. Like he's like, I gotta go tell my dad. And instead of knocking on the door, he accidentally hits it with an F-350. I gotta warn Horus, and instead of warning Horus, he scares him in the wrong direction. Like when people say Magnus did nothing wrong, he did do things wrong because of his own arrogance. And this is a common theme across all the Thousand Sons. They're all arrogant as fuck.
Right until their heads explode.
Now, that being said, Magnus was supposed to sit on the Golden Throne. He was that strong of a psyker. Again, the version of Magnus that you see in 40k right now is not full power Magnus. He's actually stronger than that. You're only getting like 70% Magnus in the 40k universe right now.
He only has like 1 or 2 shards of himself, right?
Yeah, he's nowhere near himself. Like full power Magnus, like in Horus Heresy right now, Magnus knows all psychic powers. All of them. He knows all the Prosperine Arcana. He knows all of the psychic powers. He knows everything, and he can just pick when to use them. He's a boss. Now, I don't know why they gave him nipple horns. That's a different conversation. Going down the list, Thousand Sons are one of the more infuriating legions to get models for. And we're going to start off with Isaac Araman. Now, 40k players, you are familiar with Araman because he's the same Araman that you have now.
And he's a baller.
He is a baller. He has always been a baller. Now, super cool thing is Araman does have a model in Horus Heresy that was produced by Games Workshop. Now, if you're feeling like, man, Gabe, that had a lot of past tense on it. I need to bring my mic away from my face for a second. It's because Games Workshop only put it in one box set and never sold it by itself.
Limited time.
The only way to get the Araman model was to buy the Prospero Burns box. Which is unfortunate because it's a really cool model. But anyway, Ahriman is the first captain, the chief librarian of the entire Thousand Sons Legion. He is the shit. He's just really good at this. And he also is from Terra. He is not from Prospero. He is a Terran-born Thousand Son.
I actually didn't know that.
Yep. And it's really funny because he comes from an empire that allied. So this is going to tell you how far back Ahriman really goes. Ahriman was part of the wealthy tribes of an empire that allied with the emperor during the Unification Wars. He was fighting alongside the emperor before he became an Astartes. Think about that.
Does that mean he's a perpetual or no?
No, he's just old as shit.
Okay. I was like, because most of the people that fought with the Emperor, I thought were like, for that long, were like perpetuals, or some of them were, but I could be wrong.
Now, what's going to throw people for a big loop is Ahriman and his twin brother were inducted into the Astartes at the same time.
Astartes not allowed.
Cool. Now we got that out of the way. We'll never hear about him again because I guess he didn't make it. So, things to know about Ahriman. Gameplay wise, he is a murder bot, but in all the right ways. Ahriman is a traitor only person. And dude, he's got so many psychic abilities and he's mastered so many. Like he's one of the super arrogant Thousand Sons, but he's such a beast. He carries like a scythe that's actually it's not a scythe. It's what's the name of those weapons? It's a pole arm, but the Egyptian themed one. He's really good with it. It's called the Corvidaean Sphere. Or no, Corvidaean Scepter. Scepter. I misspoke. He carries an do what?
Copet? What were they called?
Kopesh?
Kopesh, maybe?
I don't know. We'll have to Google that. Sorry for not knowing my Egyptian mythology.
Kopesh, yeah.
He is from the Corvidae house. Tons of psychic ability. Like I said, he's got a lot going for him. Like he runs the Aegis. He's got, a mental scourge ability. He has, like actual like shooting attacks. He can do force on his weapon. He's got a lot going on. One of the things you're going to notice about Thousand Sons is they have a lot going on. This is not necessarily, at least in 2.0, is not a very new player-friendly army because you have to do a lot of reading to understand this legion. That's not to dissuade you. They are a beautiful legion. They're cool models, probably one of the best aesthetics in the game, like I was saying, but you're really going to have to research this legion.
They're a pain in the ass.
By the way,
to learn.
Also, for everyone who's asking, Ahriman is also the reason the majority of the Legion can fit in an urn.
Yeah, I can officially say
Ahriman,
they are a pain in the ass to learn as a group.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. I mean, some people are smarter than you. But moving on.
Not very
The
many.
next person... the next person that we're going to talk about...
All of the people you know, and then think of how stupid they are.
Kyle only comes to mind.
Viewers, I believe in you. I think you can learn Thousand Sons. So, the next person is Amon. Amon is the captain of the 9th Fellowship of the Thousand Sons. He is also a senior commander of the Order of the Blindness. Now, what is the Order of the Blindness, you might ask?
What is it, Gabe?
In a legion of people who are obsessed with reading books, these dudes read the most books. They're actually the intelligence branch, per se, of the Thousand Sons. Does that come out in the game at all? No, it doesn't. It was just a cool fact. Now, Aemon is part of Magnus's personal equerry. So he's like he before
How many different occults do
the
they
Emperor,
have?
a ton, dude. A ton.
Why is he always compensating for something? He has all these legions. He's making himself fucking bigger than he should be whenever he's a demon, just so he could seem strong physically when he's not. I love Magnus,
So
but goddamn.
Hey, you leave my Skeletor alone.
So here's a cool thing about Aemon, and this is why he's a very important part of the story, is when all the primarchs arrive on their planets as children, when they were scattered through the universe, they all met someone and they kind of tutored them and taught them stuff. Aemon was Magnus's tutorer and his mentor. This guy taught his primarch.
I mean,
To kind of map that out, this dude is no slouch. He has a piece of armor that gives him a 2-up save and a 4+ shroud. That's crazy.
yeah.
He also bears a weapon called the Reliquary of Dust. It is both a melee and a ranged weapon. It's a staff.
Did he know he was
Cool
going to get
thing.
turned into an urn before it was a thing?
Right, makes you wonder. By default, he has one of Kyle's favorite psychic powers, which is telepathic fugue.
Pretty good, or at least in 2.0.
And he also is known as the Magister of Dust. This allows him to take multiple psychic disciplines. So he also has infiltrate. Like, this dude's a G, man. He's got a lot going on. Really fun, really cool model to play with. Really, really fun abilities. And he has a really dope model. He is in the full model line. You can actually go and get his model when it's in stock. You can get his model. But yeah, it's only going to get weirder from here. Are y'all ready to go forward?
Yep.
All right. Thousand Sons have their own dreadnought, and it does psychic shit.
It's pretty cool. I like him.
The Oseron pattern Contemptor dreadnought.
Osiron?
Is it Osiron?
Like as in Osiris?
Maybe. You might be right.
Mate.
I don't really.
I'm sorry, Gabe. I didn't have very many friends growing up. I read a lot, okay?
So, what's crazy about these is they're just normal Contemptor dreadnoughts, but they can take full-on psychic powers. And they may be one of the coolest looking dreadnoughts in the game.
They really are.
I can't stress that enough. They have some wicked aesthetics.
Now, I will say that they come with the Force Blade, but it's Brutal 2, not Brutal 3. So it's kind of lacking on that when it comes to dreadnought damage.
You get psychic powers.
But you get psychic powers. Like, there's a reason that it's not as good as a power fist.
What else do you want?
I like how Kyle is leaving out the fact that, oh, I don't have Brutal 3, I only have Brutal 2, but I have a key in 4 so I can make it Strength 11. Quit bitching!
No, I'm not bitching at all. I'm just saying that if you're gonna get into a melee fight with another dreadnought, you're gonna have a hard time.
Not necessarily. I mean, you're getting the same.
They're gonna hit you once and you take 3 wounds, maybe. You hit them once and they take 2 wounds, maybe. Like it doesn't balance out very well.
Psychic powers.
Yeah, I mean, there are other benefits to it. Don't get me wrong. I love my guy, but don't expect him to go toe to toe with a Leviathan.
I just want to say for the audience, in current 2.0, you can make the stupid Dreadnought strength 12 against Land Raiders, and you can penetrate them on 2s. Kyle, I don't want to hear it. It's strong. It's good. It's perfectly fine. If you don't like it, take it off.
Have I said I didn't like it? Have I ever once said anything in what I'm talking about that I didn't like it? No, I specifically said I like it. I just said
Crying
he
ass.
gets his ass beat when he put him toe to toe with other Dreadnoughts.
Not when we use them.
I mean, maybe it's my dice that betray me.
So the Osiran Dreads, they're just that. They're just a high class Contemptor Dreadnought. Moving on. The next unit is one of the 8 million occults and cabals that exist in the Thousand Suns, and they're called the Kinnetai Occult. They hail this is a problem with Thousand Suns. So the Kinnetai Occult come from the Order of the Jackal that served under the Guardians of the Prosperine cults.
God.
So much stupid all at once. But here's the gimmick. They all carry the Kopesh style swords. They are all blade masters. They are all murder bots. Now, Kyle's going to argue this because he's bad with them. Don't take that as any kind of credit.
No, I'm saying that they lack one thing that would make them amazing. Right now they're good, but they lack one thing that would make them amazing. It's the fact that you can't add anybody to them. You can't give them a tech marine. You can't give them an apothecary. You can't give them a librarian. You cannot give them anybody, a praetor. They are themselves, nothing else, because of their Prosper and Arcana.
So to clarify, you can give it to them, but they'll lose their Prosper and Arcana. Moving useless. On. Kinnetai Occult they're sword masters. They all carry swords. They're really good in close combat. They're really good at killing other Marines.
They're pretty badass.
They're gonna suffer. Like if you yeet them in a squad of Terminators, probably not gonna go their way.
Yeah.
If you yeet them in a Dreadnought, it's definitely not going their way. If you yeet them at another squad of Marines, it will definitely go their way.
Yeah,
100%.
And they're pretty good tune-up despoilers.
Well, despoilers are regular Marines,
yep.
dude.
Oh, okay,
stat line across the board fours.
Yeah, they're regular Marines. So the next thing that we're going to look into are Sekhmet Terminators. So Sekhmet Terminators later become part of the Scarab Occult, which become the Scarab Occult Terminators you see in Warhammer 40,000. Sekhmet Terminators are just beefy Terminators that have psychic powers. What makes them really cool is they come standard with axes and combi bolters. So you're talking about a unit of just really aggressive Terminators, but where their downfall is they're still Terminators and they're still in Cataphracti. So slow Terminators. Slow and purposeful, pretty much.
Random thought. Is there anyone in the Thousand Suns that is not a psyker?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Well, you could argue that the regular Marines are not, and that the sergeants are.
Nope. They're all psychers.
They're all psychers.
No, like in canon, they're all psychers.
They're all psychers. I was just wondering, is there any little outlier that was just like, yeah, I'm not a psyker, but I'm here?
Okay, you can take a right of war that says that your warlord cannot take a psychic ability.
But he's still a psyker.
You're missing the question. So he's asking from a canon, from an actual story point of view, are there any that are not psychers? And the answer is no.
Gotcha.
Even when you take that right of war that says you can't take a psychic discipline, you still have a prospering arcana anyway.
Yeah, they're just psychers that just stay shush.
Yeah, they will always be psychers. All of them are. That's why they're all subject to the flesh change and all that craziness. Like they're all
That was
psychers.
the gene they got from their gene father. Got it.
And yeah, and if you roll like Kyle, a lot of them turn their own heads into a canoe. So
Steady 80%.
the next cool thing that Thousand Sons have is they have a special Castle X robot that fires psychic power.
They're just batting 2 for 2 on everything the Emperor doesn't like.
Pretty much. It's like, we don't like automata. Well, what if it's automata that runs on psychic powers? Well, we don't like psychic powers either. Well, fuck you too then, Dave. So what's really funny is they made like, and I'll say this will be the small bit of hate that I throw out there. They made a new 40K version of these,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they are horrible. They're just god awful creations. The Horus Heresy versions are basically Castle X robots, but they're the Achaea class. Really awesome because they have ether flame cannons. That's the thing about Thousand Sons that I forgot to touch on. They have special bolt guns and they have special weapons called asphyx bolters and ether flame weapons. These are specifically force infused weapons. And these guys basically use a large variant of this flame cannon. They look wicked. They look so cool. You guys are going to see the picture and be like, holy crap, that looks like a murder bot. And it is an actual murder bot, not like I've been calling them, but these are actual robots that have to be controlled and they can shoot psychic blasts. Now, the last two things we're going to get into are units that don't technically have production models. You will have to kit bash these two units. But I'll be damned if they don't have a really cool story. The first are the numerologists. The numerologists, they come from a faction called the Order of Ruin. The Order of Ruin was one of the red orders. They were really prominent during the Horus Heresy and all that, but what's really crazy about these guys is they're basically tech marines. A whole squad of them.
That's kind of cool.
Now, what do you think a squad of numerologists do game-wise
Math.
that makes them cool?
They do a lot
Vortex
of
controllers and heal the automata?
No. So what they do that's super, super, super awesome is they have geolocators. So right now in 2.0, whenever you deep strike, you can reroll failed reserve rolls.
Huh. That's useful.
They also have a rule that basically says that they can stand still and everyone within 6 inches of them gets +1 to their ballistic skill for an entire shooting phase. They can literally just sit in a circle and be like, ba ba da ba 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 da ba 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 da ba 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 ba, and give everyone a ballistic skill buff.
So if their ballistic skill is already a 5, and that would make it hit on 2s, does that mean they hit on 1s, or you re-roll 1s and hit on 6s?
Reroll 1s to hit on 6s.
Okay.
Now, with the new ballistic skill
Yeah, we
table,
don't know.
that's completely different. It gives like critical hits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, we don't know what these guys are going to do in 3.0. We don't know if they're going to be around in 3.0 because this is one of the off the book units per se. Like something I will touch on whenever we do the grand wrap on all this is the difference between legacy and legends. These are a legacy unit. And so is the next unit we're going to talk about, which are the Amatara Occult. The Amatara Occult are part of the Order of the Blind, and they are essentially super snipers. And when I say super snipers, I'm not talking like Vindicare Assassin kind of super snipers. I'm talking they are scouts. They're still neophytes. But they're still psyker neophytes. so they can like infuse their rounds, they can get better aim. It's pretty cool. They're also supposed to be a secret. So take that as you will.
So one thing that I learned that makes them really special is they have nemesis bolters, which means you get precision, but they are also relentless, which means they can move and shoot. So you can have them move.
Right now.
Right, but you could have them
Right,
move and
right now.
shoot. And
So
Gabe was like, "Oh my god, they do that?" And I was like, "Yes, they do." And he goes, "Wow, you read your rules." And I said, "Yes, I
yeah,
did.
you did a
I
tactic.
did a tactic."
Yeah, so this is another one of Unit Shots at Kit Bash. They're just scouts. You can go buy some scouts from the website and build them from there. Aesthetic wise, when we think about Thousand Suns, what their paint scheme looks like and what their army looks like, they're Egyptian. They're Egyptian Space Marines, and their colors are gorgeous. They are a pearlized red with gold trim. Beautiful army.
Unless I paint them, and then they're just meh.
Yeah, you get by.
I like the way you painted them.
My avatars
So
look like Power Rangers.
I
yeah,
really
because you
did
painted
like that about them. It was unique to me. If you want to see Kyle's army, look at our what do you have it on? You have a like on the TikTok or what?
he's got it on the
I got
YouTube
a
Oh,
shorts.
okay,
short.
He's got a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a couple on the YouTube shorts.
Yeah, you have a YouTube short out there where it's you can see his Thousand Suns, and shout out to our buddy Lance. You can see his World Eaters on the other side.
Yep. So yeah, that's the wrap on Thousand Suns. Any other questions? Any other concerns?
They're the best. All around.
Ugh. Next down our list of misfits and assholes, we have the most misfits and assholes, which is the Sons of Horus. Formerly known as the Luna Wolves, they hail from Cathonia. Now, things to know about the Luna Wolves. The reason they have the name Luna Wolves, so you guys know, is during the Unification Wars and during the branch outs away from Earth, they went to the moon base, Luna, and the people that were holding the moon were like, I don't know who these wolves are that you keep sending out here, but make it stop. That's where they got the name. They were Luna Wolves all the way up until Eleanor. And at Eleanor, when the Emperor said, "Hey, I'm leaving the Great Crusade to go figure out how doors work, and I'm leaving Horus in charge." That's when they became Sons of Horus. They changed their name after the Eleanor campaign and after Horus became the War Master. So talking about Horus, I don't really know how to explain this. Horus has never lost until he died. Like, Horus didn't lose fights. He's very good at war. He's fantastic at war. And he does total war. Like, he'll obliterate you. He's very measured, very strategic. Before the heresy, he was also one of the most charismatic and charming primarchs. There's a reason he was the favored son. He was very humble, and he had a lot of humility when he became War Master. All the craziness happened after he was infected and he turned toward chaos, and chaos really infected him, is when he really went off the rails and became like the collector of broken things. Horus was no joke. He's still no joke. So when we start doing the Legion breakdowns, I'll really go into a lot more about him. But what you need to know is he comes from a planet called Cathonia. Cathonia was run by gangs. For lack of a better explanation, it was run by gangs. And those gangs kind of ran the country. If you could imagine a world where every city had an Al Capone, like that's the best example I can give you without like really going into it. So they had tons of different gangs, and one of those gangs was called the Justarin, which we're going to get into after a few units get out of the way. One of the cool things about Luna Wolves that you're going to find out as well is they have the most named characters. Of any legion, they have the most, because this is one of the legions that was very well fleshed out in the books from the very beginning. You have tons of named characters coming out of this legion, and majority of them have models and have rules. They have a lot going on. If you want an army with options, this is the one. If in the sense of HQs, like if you want to be able to field like 19 commanders, these are the guys that'll do it. The first of which may be the most well-known commander in all of Warhammer, Ezekiel Abaddon. This is the same Abaddon from Warhammer, from 40k Universe. He has never been a slouch. The one that you see in the 40k Universe right now, don't get me wrong, like, he's a beast because he has the favor of chaos. Early Heresy Abaddon was still just a mean commander, but he wasn't near as strong as he became after he like really turned on the hate, so to speak. Another fun caveat is after the heresy, he's the one that kills Sigismund. There's some Black Templar players right now that are making like a screeching sound at their screens.
Shout out, Justin.
He is the guy who killed Sigismund, but he did it like way later, and like even he says like it sucked to kill Sigismund. Like that dude was a baller. What's cool about Abaddon is he never goes full demon. He never embraces chaos. One of the cool side cannons is he actually goes and kills a clone of Horus, and then tells Fabius Bile, "Quit fucking around with things."
What do you mean a clone?
Yeah, have you never heard this? So Fabius Bile made a clone of Horus after the heresy. And Abaddon was like on a sabbatical, like he was like basically chilling on the beaches of the warp. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna chill, whatever." And some of the old Justarin showed up and they said they're trying to bring him back. And he's like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Fabius Bile is gonna clone Horus and bring him back." And he's like, "Nope, call the boys." And they rolled up in there and they killed Horus, the clone Horus. They killed him and told Fabius Bile, like, "Stop making clones. Shit's not cool."
Stop fucking around.
Yeah. So Abaddon is one of the most well-known captains for a reason. He's very prominent in all of the Horus Heresy. He's there from the beginning all the way to the end, all the way to the Siege of Terra, to after the Siege of Terra. Badass storyline. It's going to be great when we start fleshing out this Legion. I'm pretty sure this is going to be like a 9-hour episode when we do Luna Wolves / Sons of Horus. It's going to be a lot. The next big commander in the Sons of Horus is Garviel Loken. And I actually forgot something really important. Horus has a council called the Mournival, right? And what's really cool about the Mournival is Luna Wolves, right? The Mournival are 4 of his closest advisors that represent the 4 phases of the moon. Abaddon is the full moon. Loken is the new moon. Why is Loken the new moon? During
Like John
one,
Cena, you can't see him.
do what?
He's like John Cena, you can't see him.
God, I hate your fucking jokes. So, like, quite literally, like you make a joke and it makes me want to go to your house and fucking choke you. So, the reason he's the new moon is because there was a member of the Mournival that was killed. And the way he got killed was so horrible. He showed up and was like, "Hey, we're here to talk to you about the Imperium." And they're like, "Well, that sucks." And they killed him. He went to a planet to make it compliant, and they flat ass killed that dude. And Horus was like, "Look what they did to my boy." And they wrecked his shit. And Loken came out of that as like the new hotness, and he became the new moon of the Mournival. Now, Loken is one of the sons who remained loyal to the Emperor during the start of the Horus Heresy and the Istvan Massacre. One of the craziest things that happened was he lost his fucking mind. Not in the sense of like he went crazy and like went on a murderous rampage. Like, no, he literally broke into a mad case of PTSD and started calling himself Cerberus and forgot who he was. He was on Istvan so long by himself, he forgot who he was and just became this other persona known as Cerberus. Later, some other guys from some other legions went back to get him. And now that I'm remembering this, holy shit, some people are going to tear me apart for not mentioning Nathaniel Garrow in the Death Guard card.
I mean, we could technically go back and add him if you want.
No.
It's too late.
This is
It's too
worth
late.
catching hate. This is worth catching hate because he's technically not a Death Guard. He's a Knight Errant. So the Knight Errants go back and get Garvio Loken and they recruit him. But the reason why he never got Knight Errant rules is because he never really became a Knight Errant. He stayed a Luna Wolf all the way to the end. Spoiler alert, Loken is killed. Loken gets killed after the Siege of Terra while he's mourning Horus. He's there at the body of Horus. And he gets killed by the biggest shitbag in all of Horus Heresy, Erebus, the High Chaplain of the Word Bearers. And when we get to the Word Bearers, I will explain just how much I hate Erebus and why. When he kills Loken, he spawns the demon Samus. Samus is one of the bound demons, and he's born from the death of Loken, but since the warp is real timey-wimey, he's kind of like, he exists in the first book and he's born in the last book. It's pretty crazy. Loken is one of the Mournival who continuously tried to be very positive and very like, we got to do the right thing. The Mournival became split between Abaddon, who was the full moon, Loken, who was the new moon, Torgodon, who was the gibbous moon, and Aximand, who was the half moon. Which leads us into the next one, which is Horus Aximand. His nickname is Little Horus because he looked like Horus a lot. Took his name, like definitely dude had some small dick energy. He had to be like dad. He is one of the members of the Mournival. Like I said, he's the half moon. Horus Aximand. How can I explain what he is? He's a battle commander, just like the rest of them, right? He's one of the captains. But he was a very headstrong, very I want to be in the shit, even though he was attached to Fifth Company. He was in the Siege of Terra, and he's one of the guys who was coming up in a termite assault drills. So anyone who's claustrophobic, don't listen to this part. Aximand led an attachment of termite assault drills, which are the ones that burrow underground. I'm sure you guys have seen them. They look like drilling rigs with wheels. Don't know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. They were burrowing up underneath the Siege of Terra, and the Mechanicum basically sent down a radio channel to him and said, how long do you guys live? Because that's how long you're going to be there. and they started pouring quick sealing concrete into the holes. There are Luna wolves that are still buried under the Palace of Terra, the Golden Palace and all that are stuck in assault drills. And they basically got Dick Tracy. They're just like covered in concrete and they're stuck in place. And some of them technically could still be alive because Space Marines are immortal until killed. Horus Axeman led that charge and he got out, and the whole time he was like, "What the fuck? You were gonna bury me alive?" Like, he actually showed fear, genuine fear of like, I do not want to be buried alive. I refuse. And he got out of it and then got killed later. But that's Horus Axeman. So let's talk about how these guys play in game. Abaddon is Abaddon. He's a beat stick. I don't think we need to touch much on that. Like, Abaddon is Abaddon is Abaddon. He will always be Abaddon. However, when you talk about Garviel Loken, I want you guys to know that he fought Abaddon on his own at Istvan 3 and somehow survived it, okay? So we wrap that in our heads. Abaddon is in power armor with a Paragon blade and a big-ass lightning claw, right? Garviel Loken is in regular power armor, has a Paragon blade, and that's it. Homeboy, and when Homeboy fought Abaddon, he did it with a fucking chainsword.
Wow.
Talk about a pair of just brass nuts, man. Yeah, fantastic. Since he was stuck on Istvan and he was one of the last guys to make it out, he has a rule called Born Survivor right now in 2.0. And basically it says that whenever he dies, you take a leadership test, and if you pass it, he comes back with D3 remaining wounds. Pretty dope. Pretty cool. He's one of my favorite characters in the whole thing. When he died, I was really like, oh. Horus Axeman, on the other hand, dude, he plays like an asshole. He runs around with a combat shield, and he has a weapon called Mourn It All. It's basically a mastercrafted sword that's AP2 murder strike on 5+, and he's got a Bane strike bolter. Like, he's really, dude, he's a jerk of jerks. And what's really crazy is he has a rule called Haunted. If he is in a combat in which Loken, that we just talked about, Garviel Loken, is removed from combat, if they're in a combat together and Garviel Loken gets removed, then he gets +2 victory points in the game. Because he's haunted by Garviel Loken. He hates that fucker, dude. He's constantly like, this guy was a 10th captain. Why is he part of the Mournival? They're like, oh man, it's all good. He's like, no, I don't get it. He's beneath us. Why is he here? He hates Loken, man. And it even bleeds over into the game. Now, like I said, the other member of the Mournival isn't in the game. He doesn't have rules because he has a whole different thing that happens. We'll have to cover that in the Legion breakdown. The next big person that they have, he has a model now. He finally got a model, and it's Malagurst. Specifically, he's known as Malagurst the Twisted. He was a gang leader on Chthonia, so he's from the olden days with Horus and Abaddon and all those dudes. What's super crazy is he was in a Stormbird that got shot down, and he got mangled. Like, I'm talking, oh boy, looked like a Lego got thrown in the dryer, dude. He got fucked up. and he never quite got right. That's why they call him Malagurst the Twisted.
Looked like he got fucked up with the coffee pot.
Pretty much, like I get it's more of those like whenever you get like a rag caught up in a drill. Like homeboy got jacked up, dude. He really did get jacked up, and so much to a point where he doesn't really have a battlefield role anymore. He's like they give him a banner to use it as a cane. That's what his model is. His model is like him leaning on a banner, and you can like see it. So he doesn't actually do battlefield roles necessarily. He does, but not like other people do. He's mostly like tactical support. Like he gives opinions and things like that. Um, because of that, in game, if he joins a unit, they can never run or swimming advance because he's busted as fuck. But he's the only commander in the game that I know of that has a line subtype. He is a scoring unit.
That's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, he's pretty dope. He also has like it will not die and a bunch of other rules because he's just tough. He's tough as hell, but he's definitely like he's got some Forrest Gump vibes. Like these are my dancing shoes. Like he's tore up, dude. That's why they call him the Twisted. The next big commander that pops out is Tybalt Mar. Tybalt Mar also has a playable model with playable rules, a full production model. Tybalt Mar, he's referred to as the Either. He fought at the War of Murder against the Megarachnids alongside the Emperor's Children. Do you guys remember Shadrach Medusan from the Dark Angels section?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the dude that killed him.
Nice.
Tybalt Mar is gross. So gameplay wise, he carries a weapon called the Culling Blade. That's the name of his weapon. He's all about it. And by the way, Malagurst, Axeman, Tybalt Mar, they all carry Banestrike bolters, which are basically bolters that are strength 5 with breaching 6+. All of them carry this. This is a common thing with Luna Wolves with commanders. They like to carry Banestrike bolters. One of the cool things about this dude is he is absolutely hated by certain places, and he hates certain people. You remember how earlier we were talking about the Black Shields and how some of them came from like the Shattered Legions and all that stuff? Tybalt Mar has hatred Shattered Legions. So in the lore, his big thing is like he wanted to completely eradicate everybody that fought at Istvan. Like he wanted to get rid of all the loyalists 100%. He went to the Siege of Terra, fought on the Siege of Terra. It was crazy. He made it all the way to the end of the entire war. Like he's alive all the way to the end. He hates the Shattered Legions so much that in game he has hatred Shattered Legions. If he's playing, he hates Shattered Legions, dude. He's like, if you don't have a daddy, I don't like you.
So, just to clarify, what makes a Shattered Legion?
Shattered Legions are the guys who don't have a home legion. Like they were the three main Shattered Legions were Salamanders, Iron Hands, and Raven Guard. They're the guys who got absolutely pummeled at the Istvan drop site. Their legions were so demoralized afterwards, they became pretty much the Shattered Legions, and they were reformed later. Now, the last character that they have also has a model. It's Varen Ashuradon. I'm pretty sure I got that right. Ashuradon, yeah. He
Are
also
you
has a
sure?
play. I am Ashur.
Hadan. I am Ashur Hadan.
So he is one of the Reavers.
He's a Titan.
As a matter of fact, he's the first Reaver. Like when you think of Reavers, you have to think of like the unit. They're called the Reaver Aggressor Squads. He's one of the first Reaver squads out there. This guy plays like a murder machine in such a way that I can't really explain it without going into his rules. So let's talk about where Reavers are first, because they are a unit and they do play a certain way. The Reavers are one of the special units that only the Sons of Horus have, and they're basically like close combat weapons, like assault squads. You know, they normally carry chain swords and pistols. Well, these guys carry chain axes and pistols, very similar to how you see a lot of world leaders run. The biggest difference is they have jump packs, they have precision shots, precision strikes, chosen warrior, counterattack. They're all about getting into the shit. They get into close combat, they beat the brakes off you, they're going to fight better than you. This dude was the first one. The way that works is he has the rule of the first Reaver. He can take any Reaver squad as basically like a retinue squad for just him, and they're deployed with him. He has precision. He has all the other stuff that everyone else has, but he also has a special armor called the Panoply of the Void, which gives him a 2-up armor save and a 4-up invulnerable. But in addition to that, any enemy unit that targets him with a shooting attack has to extend the range of that attack by another 3 inches. So he has a baby shroud bomb.
That's funny.
But that conveys to his unit as well.
To the whole unit? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
How does that rule translate from the lore?
Because the way the Reavers fight. So Reavers don't just run up and just do things, right? So Reavers are kind of like a hidden element, like they're like a fast attack element. Let me actually explain 100%. You have assault squads and then you have Reaver squads. Assault squads are very just frontline, run at you, hit you with a stick, call it a day. Reaver squads were more like, we're going to go in here and disassemble you, and you're not going to know we were there because we got there so fast.
And anybody can take Reaver squads? Like it's a general squad, like Assault Squad?
No, it is only for Sons of Horus.
Oh, okay.
This is one of their specific squads. But we have to explain what Reavers are so you understand the importance of him being the first Reaver.
Got it. Okay.
They're basically the actual, like the way that they explain it as a legion is their despoiler squads taken to the next level. And they follow that by using the influences of some of the gangs, specifically the Reaver gangs on Cathonia. That's how they're modeled. The Reavers are literally like following the battle prowess of the Reaver gangs from Cathonia. Like, they're gross, man. This guy is the one who basically commanded them. And that's where his rules come in, is it basically think of it as a sense of like, they're so aggressive and they're so good at what they do, you never really get a fix on him. And that's where that extra 3 inches comes from.
Okay.
Now that is all the named characters that they have access to.
2 hours later.
They have 7 named characters in their HQs that have playable rules. The cool thing is they only have 4 special units, so let's get into those. The first one we just went over, that's the Reaver squads. There are Reaver aggressor squads and there are Reaver attack squads. Reaver attack squads are on foot. Reaver aggressor squads have jump packs. Easy peasy, beautiful cover girl. So, the one that everyone knows about, Justarin Terminators. Oh, wait, important distinction. Everything that we're going to talk about, with the exception of one unit, has a purchasable unit from GW. Reavers have a purchasable squad. Justarin are a purchasable squad. Justarins are Terminators that they do their combat based on the Justarin gangs from Cathonia, and they had a colossal influence on other Terminator squads across all of the other legions. You'll find out that White Scar Terminators from the Ebon Keshig, a lot of them learned how to fight like Justarin Terminators. A lot of the ones from a lot of other loyal legions got kind of shit on later on because they fought like Justarin, and after the war broke out, they were like, ugh, you fight like Luna Wolves. What a traitor. Like, it becomes an actual stigma. These guys taught so many people how to be good Terminators that they actually influence in like 4 other legions. So this is the prototype of what it means to be a badass Terminator. Normally, they roll with Abaddon. Abaddon is the commander of the Justarin. Now, gameplay-wise, they're Terminators. What makes them a little bit better than other Terminators is they have Furious Charge. Because again, that's their lore. They're very hyper-aggressive Terminators, right? And they carry a special type of power axe. And I'm going to read the profile, and then you guys are going to pick up what's missing, okay? So they are Strength User. They are AP 3. They are Breaching 5+. Did y'all pick up what's missing?
No.
They're not unwieldy.
Oh. That's gross.
Pretty
Right.
good.
They also have twin-linked, or basically combi Bane Strike Bolters. So they have breaching on their bolters too. They're just super hyper-aggressive Terminators, man. Is really all they are. They can take a different kind of loadout as well than other Terminators. So Justarins can take all of the melee weapons. They can take lightning claws. They can take a lot of stuff. They're just, again, I cannot stress how aggressive they are. The last unit, this is the only one that you can't just go buy a unit because you have to kit bash it, are called the Chieftains. You remember those Reavers we were talking about?
No.
The Chieftains lead them.
Oh, okay.
Chieftains are just all Legion champions, essentially. And so rules-wise, I'm going to tell you how they work, and you guys are going to go, what the hell? You ever seen somebody and you're like, you can't do everything, right? Well, Chieftains can.
So they're Superman.
Chieftains can take any weapons that they want. If they want power axes, they can take power axes. If they want spears, if they want mauls, lances, swords, power fists, if they want power axes, power to bars, chain axes, they can take whatever weapon they want. The next big thing is they have a rule called Kingslayers. When they are in a combat that includes an independent character, they can reroll all their failed hit rolls of 1 if they're engaged in a challenge. If they're fighting a Primarch unit, I'm sorry, I worded that incorrectly. If they're fighting in against a unit that has an independent character, they get to reroll their 1s. If they're engaged in a challenge with a character or a Primarch, they reroll all failed to hit.
Wow.
Yeah. They can carry a Legion standard. They're just really, really, really good in close combat. They're basically a squad of baby captains. Or baby centurions is what they are. They're 2 wound models. They're base leadership 8 across the board.
Sergeants are 9?
No, they don't have. They're all 8s. They're all sergeants, bro.
Oh, okay.
They're so stupid. They're so good. They're one of the units that are commonly taken. They're a big part of Sons of Horus armies. Chieftains are a big thing. Now the crazy part is that's all they have. They have, like I said, 7 HQs and they have 4 special units. Such a crazy Legion, man.
A lot of name characters.
A lot of names. And you have to remember, they've been around since book 1. They were very well fleshed out.
Yeah.
So, now, aesthetic-wise, they are like an aquamarine green.
It's really pretty. I really like them. They're really pretty.
Yeah, they're like
paint, I would play them.
Yeah, they're like an aquamarine green with black trim, and the Gestarans are just murdered out black.
Yeah, I like them, and I like Alpha Legion for the same reason. They're very close colors.
I love Alpha Legion for the models, man. But we'll get to that another.
Yeah, we'll get to Alpha Legion, but they have similar color.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sons of Horus are one of the
Marines.
The Sons of Horus are one of those like linchpin kind of important things where everybody loves them for a different reason. Like there's a lot of guys who are like, oh yeah, man, that's where Abaddon came from. And like the next group is like, nah, that's where Loken came from. And then another person is like, I love the books about the Mournival. That's why I played them. And then another guy is like, I like the fact that they run Gestarans and Reaver squads. And you're like, okay, that's cool. And then some will run, like, I remember I went somewhere to play against somebody and they had Sons of Horus. And I was like, why'd you play Sons of Horus? Like, what made you want to play him? And he was like, oh, it was really cool, man. They're not as hard to paint because they don't have a bunch of special shit everywhere. And I was like, you know what? That boy's on to something. Because when you look at their characters, right? So like if you look at Horus Aximand, he is not a super intricate model like some of the other Praetors. When you look at Malagurst, he is not super intricate. When you look at Tybalt Mar, he is not super intricate. Loken is nowhere near intricate. Abaddon, dude, 30k Abaddon, I would say his model looks borderline boring. He looks like another, like he looks like somebody named Bill in Power Armor. Right? And that guy nailed it. They don't have a ton of guys who have all of the filigree and the craziness. They're very just practical. Probably the most difficult one is Horus, because I'm of course Primarch, but yeah, the rest of them are very generic. Like they don't have all the shine and stuff. Like when you pick up a Blood Angel army, holy crap. The Dawnbreakers have filigree on the armor trim. The Angel's Tears have it on their helmets. The damn Sanguinary Guard have teardrops everywhere and wings on the jump packs. Like they're so gaudy.
We get it, Gabe. Your Blood Angels army that you painted should have won,
No,
all right?
no. Like when I say that, like there's other armies that are like that too, like Ultramarines. When you start painting, like Suzerain and Gilliman, lots of embellishments and lots of crazy stuff. You start painting Space Wolves, dude, lots of embellishment, lots of little details. Sons of Horus are just like, I like turtles. They're not super, super in-depth, crazy to paint. And so there's some guys that like that too.
Getting that color correct, though, that's what I was getting at.
The color is tricky. Like I said, it's a very specific type of green. But when you do it, it looks really good. It's almost like an off teal.
Yep.
But really, really pretty color scheme. And what's really crazy is, unlike a lot of the other legions, when you think of like Thousand Sons, Amon and Aramin, they all made it to the end. The Death Guard, Typhus and Mortarion, they all made it to the end. Abaddon's the only one, bro. The rest of these dudes died. I don't know when exactly they die, but Abaddon's the only person from the Luna Wolves or Sons of Horus that makes it to the 41st millennium. The rest are gone.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
So definitely like the most named characters that didn't carry on their good name. So yeah, that's it for these boys. So the last Traitor Legion is the Alpha Legion.
Wait, did you call them traitors?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They are traitors. Anyone who says otherwise does not understand what they're talking about. Yes, they are traitors. They will always be traitors.
I don't know, Gabe. But let's hear about these guys.
All right. So, the main thing that a lot of people don't know is we don't know where the Alpha Legion come from. They don't technically have a home world. They do. We just don't know where it is. The second misconception is everyone says, Alfarius is the Primarch. Technically, Alfarius is a twin. It is Alfarius and Omegon. The concept behind the Alpha Legion is that they are they're the CIA in power armor. They infiltrate other legions. They infiltrate other societies. They do a lot of subterfuge. They do a lot of sabotage. They do a lot of spying. That's their whole thing, is their cloak and daggers to the max. They also specialize in assassinating people. So, CIA in power armor. What you want to know about them, though, is they give the Thousand Sons a run for their money for the prettiest models in the game, which we'll get into that at the end. Alfarius is the smallest of the Primarchs, probably because he's a twin. And his entire legion has this concept of, I am Alfarius. Everyone says they're Alfarius. And they are able to get into other legions, like infiltrate them and get with them, because they're very casual sized. They don't stand out. They don't, have any crazy traits. They blend in very well. To show for that, one of the things that they've gotten both in first edition and second edition, and I'm sure this is going to carry into third edition, is what are called the rewards of treachery. In their normal gameplay, Alpha Legion can take any special unit from any other legion. So you can run around with an Alpha Legion army, and you can have some Dawnbreakers from Blood Angels, or you can take some Justaran Terminators from Sons of Horus and add it to your list, and it's completely part of your army with no strings attached. That's one of the cool things they get to do to follow their theme, because they are infiltration specialists. They're also assassin specialists, which brings us to the first named character of their army, Exodus.
Probably, I would say it with all bias, one of the top 3 best looking models.
He's pretty legit. So Exodus, for those 40K junkies and some guys that have read about some of their stuff, his abilities with a sniper rifle are equal to that of a Vindicare Assassins. He's actually, they actually say like he is the best assassin killer outside of the Assassinorium. He's the shit when it comes to killing people. He calls his gun the instrument. Now, crazy things to know, and this is something that a lot of people kind of get hung up on. No one in the Legion really knows who anyone else is. Exodus is one of these people, so technically in a list, you can bring more than one Exodus. At least with the current rules, because no one really knows who he is. No one knows who anyone is for sure. But he's one of the models they for sure don't know who he is because he never takes off his helmet. He's just got his gun. He's just out there like doing his thing. He can never be the warlord of an army because he's always doing covert assassination stuff. Now, getting into the characters who can be warlords of an army, you have Armalus Dynat. Now, I hate this dude, but that's a personal bias. That's a Gabe bias. You know almost nothing about him. This is going to be a very common thing with Alpha Legion. There's not a lot of information about any of these guys to really tell him about their story. And he really is only his only real big plot in the stories is he's explained in one of the Remembrancer logs from the Ultramarine stuff. During one of the wars, he spared the first chapter master of the Ultramarines in combat. That's kind of like what he's known for. Is this Remembrancer was like, yeah, this Alpha Legion dude busted down the door and he was going to kill everybody, but he spared the chapter master and just left. It really paints Ultramarines in a shitty light. That's why I don't like him. But he's a very good strategist. He was very good at creating very like outside the box thinking plans. Specifically, his goal was to do as much as he needed to do so that he could pull off that assassination strike. And that actually kind of carries into the game a little bit because he has Weapon Master, which allows him to do some things in close combat. It's kind of silly the names he has for his weapons, though. He calls his pistol. I'm sorry, not his pistol. He has 2 weapons, 2 close combat weapons. He calls them the Prince and the Prophet. One's a sword and one's a hammer. Meh. Like, he's a little full of himself, but he's allowed to be because he's a beast. He does have like precision on 4 pluses right now in 2.0. He can be Master of the Legion. Like, he really does have a lot going on. Like, I think he even carries Phosphex bombs. Like, dude's a full weapon kit to himself. So his whole like jack of all trades thing really measures up. After him, you have Score. You have Odilon Score. He's the king killer. Guess what he does?
Hunts people.
He hunts the worst people. He's one of the guys who really he has a model. I think it may be a conversion. I think he has a model though. He's the first Delegatus.
Not gonna lie though, when I first saw this model, I don't know if it's real or not. I thought it was fake because he does not do the Alpha Legion Justice. So if it's the same picture and the same model we're talking about,
he may not have he in retrospect he may not have a legit model. That's something we'll have to dig into. I'll see what we can pull up for an image for him. But he was the first Delegatus, at least from what I've seen. Like he's the first named Delegatus. He was involved in a lot of different combats. He was like one of the guys who was running down the Shattered Legions. He was one of the guys who he talked a lot of shit to Iron Warriors. Like he didn't jive with them. He was always like bossing them around and whatnot. And he's actually one of the reasons why some of the Iron Warriors defected back to the Loyalists. Like the guy's a jerk, but he's all about controlling the battlefield and doing what he needs to do. Beyond that, like he was kind of a diplomat too. Like he was very good about going in and like talking people out of their money. You know, hey, you don't want to come down here and do all this, man. Keep your stuff. You know, just be compliant, pay your little tithe, you'll be all right. Like he was that guy. But we don't know a whole lot about him because again, it's Alpha Legion. We don't know a ton about these guys.
What did you say his name was again?
Audlin Score.
Okay.
I'm sure that there is a more highfalutin pronunciation of that name. I just don't care to know it. Now, getting into the units of what the Alpha Legion can take. The most popular unit among Alpha Legion are the Lernaean Terminators. Lernaean Terminators are amazing, and they look amazing. They are very much the best of the best when it comes to the Alpha Legion, and they play like it. What's kind of crazy is for a long time their existence wasn't known outside of the Alpha Legion. They were actually like a pretty well guarded secret. And then during the heresy, people were like, "Who are these Terminators?" And then they started getting just absolutely dog walked by them, and they're like, "We don't know what they are, but they hurt. Get it away." And they kind of after that deserve this reputation of like, holy crap, these guys carry Volkites and conversion beamers and Terminator armor. What's that about? And then you find out that they would deploy in pretty much every way possible. And like one of the coolest things that ever happened is once upon a time, Alfarius actually disguised himself as a Lernaean Terminator just to confuse some Space Wolves. They're just really souped up Terminators, and they do really well. Again, we don't know a ton about their backstory. What I will tell you is in gameplay, they're every bit the special Terminator they seem to be. They have It Will Not Die on Terminators in Mark II, which is pretty awesome to just be able to regain wounds back. They're known as the Hydra Exemplars, so right now they get a +1 benefit to all of their attacks on their rolls, which is crazy. They're actually a really good unit. They're just super elite. The next doesn't have an actual model. You model these up basically out of Recon Marines, and it's the Efrit Disruption Cadre. These guys are exactly what they sound like. They just go in and wreck shit. They're like, oh, you had telephones. You had comms. Oh,
These
what
are
is
like the
this?
breachers with the shotguns, right?
They can take shotguns, but they can also take Bane Strike bolters.
Oh yeah.
I love them with shotguns because it's hilarious to because they run Bane Strike shotguns, which are shotguns with breaching, which is hilarious. They're really cool because they go in and basically just disrupt stuff, and their rules even let them do that. They actually have rules for stuff like if they deploy certain things, then they disrupt all your leadership. They disrupt your ability to use voxes or augury weapons. Like they really do play that way in the game right now. Really cool unit, pretty cool story. They just go up there and they just guerrilla warfare it up. Now the sad part is there's only one more unit that the Alpha Legion have access to, and that's headhunter squads.
These guys are disgusting from what I remember.
Headhunters are gross because they're assassins.
Exactly how they're named.
They're straight up assassins. They have precision on their guns. They can go in, they can infiltrate. And this is to kind of mimic their storyline. There's actually a story where Gilliman is like chilling in his office, and one of his like favorite sergeants comes in and is like, "What's up, G-Man?" And he's like, "What's up, dude? Where you been?" And he's like, "Oh, just out killing them heretics." And he's like, "Hey, where's that sword I gave you?" He's like, "Oh, I lost it in battle." And at that moment, G-Man knew it was a trick and almost got killed by these headhunters. They infiltrated as Ultramarines and almost killed G-Man in his own room, dude. Like they almost aced him in his own office. These dudes are really good at their job. And they're basically a modified version of a Seeker squad. They do have a upgrade kit you can purchase, which is basically like the upper torso and the guns. So now let's talk about the aesthetic. Alpha Legion are gorgeous. They are a metallic teal with silver trim, and majority of the time their special units are covered in dragon scales because they are the Hydra.
Head. Yep, the heads of the Hydra.
They are gorgeous. Gotta love them. They're gorgeous models, but from a ease of play standpoint, both in 1.0, 2.0, and I don't suspect it will be different very much in 3.0. They're a challenging army to play because you pretty much have to know everybody's rules to know how to use them to the maximum ability. But they are a fun army once you understand the game, and they are a beautiful army. Alferis, he's carrying this exotic looking spear. He's covered in dragon scales. Exodus has this massive sniper rifle covered in dragon scales. They're just, Dynat is covered in scales with this thunder hammer and this sword. Like, they're a really beautiful army. That's going to wrap up the Traitor Legions. And, honestly, thank you for having us. Hopefully this helps you pick which legion you want to go after. It gives you an idea of the direction you want to go in and which one may fit into your hobby wheelhouse. And, maybe you'll pick more than one. Thank you for joining us here at Late Night Dice. Can't wait to see you on the next episode. At some point, I'm going to need a fucking script. Winging this shit's getting on my nerves.